In this video, I'm going to be saying the word Shazam a lot because I really want to turn into the superhero and have lightning strike where I am right now. So this last weekend I watched Shazam, which is starring Zachary Levi, aka Flynn Rider, aka Broadway star. That was a fun tidbit to learn about. Anyways, just a rundown of how this video is gonna go. I'm gonna go over the rating of the movie and how it was rated, why it was rated that way, and then in the second part of the video I'm going to say what I thought about the movie without spoiling anything because this is a movie review and so I'm not gonna spoil anything. So let's just go into this really quickly. Shazam was rated PG-13. So just getting into the concept of Shazam. Shazam is about this kid who turns into a superhero after he says the word Shazam. A lightning bolt hits him and he turns into the superhero and he goes from kid to adult. This movie was rated PG-13 for intense sequences of action, language, and suggestive material. So with the three categories already there for us to break down, I'm gonna go over first intense sequences of action. Okay guys, this is a superhero movie, so there's gonna be action involved because have you seen any superhero movie in the past like 10 years? If you haven't, then you're either a very small child or you just don't like superhero movies. There are indeed intense sequences of action, like it's, you know, intense sequences of action. The action itself is not horrible or like super gory in any way. Overall, that's not how it is, but there are a couple of scenes that are intense and like kind of like, ugh, okay, that you went there, alright, fine. One of the scenes is where this villain gets revenge on an entire room of people which don't have anything to do with the plot. Well, we'll talk about that later. And he releases these like demon-esque things and one of them bites one of the guys' heads off. There's a couple people thrown out the window. There's people, you know, banging on like windows and doors and stuff trying to get out. So that's kind of like the first thing that I was thinking about. Another thing is one of the main proponents and like plot devices of this film has to do with your eyeball. So the villain has like this eyeball thing, like as you can see in the trailers, and ultimately to defeat the villain he has the superhero has to get that eyeball out, and so it doesn't show anything, but it does, like, you know, it has to get in somehow, one, and then it has to get out somehow too, so that's all I'm gonna say on that. Another scene that I can think of is something happens, magic involved, and this woman, she turns into ash, but before that there's like this whole process where, yeah, that's all I'm gonna say. Okay, so about the language. The language is next, and this is a DC film, so DC films are kind of like more on the more frequent level of language. Yes, the language is there. I probably won't recommend it for kids under a certain age or whatever age you don't think that kids should be hearing. See, I'm not super affected by language, but you know, some people are, so just letting that stay out there. The language part can also mean like hand signals that you do, so there was about 4 of them, if you know what I mean. And they were about, altogether, about 20 seconds. Anyways, we're moving on to suggestive material. There's one scene that does come to mind where, you know, when a kid turns into a grown man, what does he first do? He starts doing adult stuff, and he sees, oh, let me go into this building, which is a gentleman's club. Nothing is shown. He just goes in and then comes out. But that's the suggestive material. So I'm gonna pull up the frequency chart and rate this movie on a scale of 1 to 10 on how frequent these elements were that I just described to you. So I would say on this frequency scale, I would say it's about a 6, like average-ish. Lastly, for this first part of the video, I'm gonna pull out my magical scale of movies where I rate a movie on a scale of Lego Movie 2 to Deadpool on how appropriate this movie is for younger audiences. I'm gonna say this movie is a 7 on the scale, which is Iron Man. So if you know about the elements in Iron Man and what that encompasses and just how they were played out, then you will kind of know what Shazam will be like when you walk into the theaters. Okay, now we're on to the fun part of the video where I get to tell you guys about whatever like comes to mind. What I liked about the movie, what I didn't like about the movie, and all that kind of stuff. Again, this is a non-spoiler video, so I'm not going to spoil anything for you. I'm just going to say what I liked and what I didn't like about the movie and if I would recommend it to you guys or not. So Shazam, the premise of it, and I love the superhero, like Shazam and Doctor Strange. I was so excited to hear that those movies were coming out, like when I first heard about DC and Marvel's plans for the future and their cinematic universes. I love the superhero Shazam, like even though he's not super well known in the universe of things and in this universe. I just love the character, and I loved what they, like, how it was developed and how Billy Batson came to be Shazam and stuff like that. Anyways, I think DC is doing a good job of sticking to their strengths. What I mean by that is Wonder Woman was amazing. I really liked Aquaman, like, as a laugh, like as a gag, and I love Shazam. Like, it's a great movie. I really enjoyed it, and it was worth it to go. DC is sticking to their strengths, meaning that they're, like, sticking to solo movies and not creating a cinematic universe and trying to copy Marvel in something that they are totally unprepared for. See, if DC and Marvel started at the same, like, point in time, like Marvel started with Iron Man and DC started with Batman, and so they went along with, like, you know, they both were thinking the same thing, like, phase 1 we're gonna introduce all these characters, and then, like, have a group movie, and then phase 2 we're going to introduce all these new characters and then have another group movie. If they were going at the same pace, then it would be a little bit more of a high intensity, like, market for this kind of thing. But DC's a little bit behind in the time and the development that Marvel has already, like, put into place. So DC is learning from their Batman vs. Superman and Justice League mistakes and just sticking to solo movies that just develop a single character, which they did fantastically, and I really love their casting choices. Like, every single casting choice that they made, with a few ones that I didn't really enjoy, was fantastic. I loved Zachary Levi in this, the two boys who played the Foster brothers, and then the Foster family. Like, those kids were cast really well. I also kind of liked the villain, but we'll get onto that later. So I'm just going to talk about Zachary Levi and his, like, interaction with all these different things, and I think he was a perfect casting choice for this. I think he's like the Iron Man casting choice. Like, if you could imagine any other actor playing Shazam other than Zachary Levi, I dare you to tell me in the comments down below. Zachary Levi just fit perfectly like a puzzle piece. Really, just the way that he was acting and, like, you know, reacting to certain things, and I was like, that is exactly how a 13, 14-year-old would react to something. Billy Batson, like Shazam, and Billy Batson were, like, really good casting choices. I really loved how Asher Angel is his name. I really liked the way that he was, you know, acting, and, you know, his chemistry with the other kid, his reactions with the other kid, Jack Dylan Grazer, like, those were just so fun to watch. I think the villain was good. Like, on a surface level he was great, but when I was thinking about certain things, I was like, okay, that's a little bit interesting. We meet him first as a little boy, and then we see him, like, 20 years later, and we're just like, are you okay? You're kind of holding a grudge for a very long time, and, like, this is kind of mildly convenient for this villain arc that we have. I'm not gonna get into it because those are spoilers, and so, yeah. I think Mark Strong did a great job playing a villain. I liked the way that he did things. The demons, on the other hand, that, like, play the main antagonist for this is just kind of, nah, no. I like how they set up everything in the first act. The second act was, like, pretty good. It didn't move too slowly, but you could tell, like, the movie was slowing down. We need to focus on certain things and stuff like that. And then the third act got kind of weird. I'm not giving anything away because of spoilers. Like, honestly, I did like the third act, but it was kind of, like, not a huge climactic moment for me, but at the same time it was. It's a really weird thing that I'll probably address in the spoiler rant. One other thing that I didn't really enjoy very much was the film score by itself. It kind of reminded me of temp music. Like, I just didn't enjoy it. It didn't stand out to me, which is understandable because they probably spent more money on CGI and graphics instead of, you know, hiring a composer to say, like, hey, can you make this, like, a really memorable score? So lastly, I'm going to tell you whether I would buy this movie, rent it, or see it in theaters. And this is definitely a see it in theaters and a buy it. For me personally, I would probably buy this movie and watch it a couple of times. But seeing it in theaters was great, and I loved it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Have a great random Thursday. I will see you on the other side of the screen. Bye!